so we can all see this. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this in unit 10 when we look at our agreement, our contract, excuse me. So there's the wall and there's two sides of the wall, right? So you have the seller on one side of the wall,
right?
and you have the buyer on the other side of the wall.
Okay.
Seller has hired a firm, right? And they have an agent.
Right.
That agent firm represents the seller because they are on this side of the wall with the seller.
Yes.
The buyer has said they don't want representation. The buyer doesn't want anybody standing on their side of the wall. So the person working with the buyer, not for the buyer, but with the buyer, is going to be over here under the listing firm. The buyer has no representation, thus the buyer stands alone.
Does that make the buyer a customer?
Yes. That's exactly what sub-agency
not a
is.
client.
It's the difference of being my client and me standing on this side of the wall with you versus you being my customer and me standing on the other side of the wall.
So does that mean if you're a sub-agent, you're always working with customers and not clients?
Not so much always, just this transaction.
Okay.
This buyer. This buyer's chosen not to hire you. Remember, I got two choices. You're either my client or my customer.
Right.
So if you don't remember my client, what's that leave you with? Being my customer.
Because the buyer is unrepresented.
Yep.
So if the buyer and the seller are both represented, is there ever a sub-agent involved?
No.
No. Okay, I think that clears it up. I think that helps me.
Because a seller sub-agent is a customer, right? So if both parties are represented, they're both clients. They're somebody's client.
So,
Okay,
so I'm selling my house. I've hired you. You are my listing agent.
Mm-hmm.
A buyer calls the firm and says, hey, I saw this on Zillow or whatever, and I don't have a broker. At that point, the firm gives the sub-agent, or
At that point, the firm's going to try to get the buyer to hire me, right? Right. I'm always going to give them that option. It's best for you if you hire me, right? First class versus coach, right?
Right.
And the buyer says, no. I don't want to hire you. Okay. Then that makes me a seller sub-agent.
Okay. So if you're a sub-agent, there's no dual agency.
Correct. Because dual agency, I need how many clients?
One client, two agents.
How many clients?
Two clients?
There you go.
Two clients.
So if one's a client, one's the customer. Dual agency.
It's not dual agency.
Because to dual agent, I have to have a seller client and a buyer client. So there's seller sub-agency or dual agency.
I'm just trying to make all these terms intermingle.
It's tough.
Okay, so if there's a sub-agent, there's no dual agency.
Correct.
Because there's two clients. There's one client and one customer.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So
I still don't know if I have it, but that helps. If I keep reading it and doing it, I think I'll have it.
You got to see it over and over and over again.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Jody.
So based off her question with the sub-agent and the dual agency, it makes it a sub-agency because, like you said, it's only one client, right?
Correct.
So let's say that I'm employed for a firm and I have a listing for my firm, and then somebody who's unrepresented calls me and wants to see the listing and everything like that. That's what would create the sub-agent relationship.
Maybe the buyer calls you unrepresented. Maybe the buyer calls another agent within a different firm. Mm-hmm. Right. So either one, I mean, the buyer, as long as the buyer's, that's the key about seller sub-agency. The buyer is not represented.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe
then-
we're in the same firm, maybe we're in a different firm.
My question was kind of more like unrepresented buyers that call about a listing that I have for my firm. Like,
Mhm.
and let's say, I don't, that was just based, like if they employ me, would that be a dual agency?
Yes,
Or-
because they employed you.
Right.
Once they employ you, they become your client.
Right.
Because how do
And
they
then
employ
that-
you? There's our agency agreement. But
So
if they
just
don't
call
employ,
when-
if they don't
Right.
employ you,
Mhm.
then they are your customer.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
So
Yeah.
that's why you say things like seller, client, buyer, customer. So you see what I'm saying? You're either a seller, client, buyer, client, right? So you're both are represented, or you are a seller, client, and a buyer, customer, for instance.
Yes.
That's
If
the
you're not my
distinction.
client,
You're
then you're my customer.
distinguishing how that person is represented by saying they're a client or they're a customer.
and a customer is unrepresented. So the distinction is whether or not you're represented or not.
Okay.
Can you be a buyer sub-agent? So we all work for Julie's Real Estate Shop, and one of you signs a buyer's agency agreement. Whose loyalty to the rest of you in the firm? So Dawn, you have a buyer's agency agreement. The rest of you, who's your loyalty to?
Say that again.
Dawn?
The buyer. The
and your-
buyer.
There you go.
'Cause the
Why?
whole
Because
firm
the
is-
relationship is between the firm
Firm.
and the buyer. So as a buyer's, Dawn enters into a buyer agency agreement. The rest of you are buyer sub-agents, just by default. One of you gets a listing agreement, we all get a listing agreement.
So if you and I are in the same firm and you get a buyer listing and I get a seller listing and we're dual, at that point, the firm is dual agency. That's why we don't talk at the water cooler.
Correct.
Okay.
Because we have two clients now, right? We got to treat them both. How would you feel if you found out that Amin and I were standing around chit chatting about you and your personal reasons to sell and how much you're willing, but it's okay because we're from the same firm, right? No, we still, no matter what the relationship, if it's a client, we still owe them that confidentiality. There's still certain personal information, even though we're in dual, there's still certain personal information that I'm not going to share. It's nobody's business.
Okay, I think I got it, or sort of have it.
I get it. And like I said, the best thing I know is just go over it. It's tough. It's tough because I get it. So
Okay, that's what I did this weekend was I went over that over and over and over and I just couldn't. I still don't know if I've got it 100%, but that helps.
try it again. Yep.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
You too.